Ask an Aspiring Expert project by Bursek-Krekling. What do I think I do pretty well in the classroom? Well, I think I make literature come alive. I think I share my love of literature and reading with my students, and I do a pretty good job at it. The book to read is not the one that thinks for you, but the one which makes you think. This is a quote by one of my favorite authors, Harper Lee, and one I share with my students quite frequently. What was my motivation for attempting to share my love of literature with my students? Well, it was honestly a complete failure on my part my first year of teaching high school English, and honestly a result of not being very motivated as a student when I was in high school. The dynamic was then, and still is sadly today, assign students chapters to read of the text and then hopefully have a discussion about it the next day. What I found, however, is that there wasn't much of a discussion because most of my students hadn't even done the reading, and it was basically me lecturing them and them trying to regurgitate what I had lectured. It was boring for them, and it was boring for me. Dewey finds too many pupils with divided interests, and he believes their mental truancy is the result overemphasis on direct instruction and formal presentation. I couldn't agree more. How would I qualify myself as an expert? Well, I think learning from years of hits and misses, taking what works and really emphasizing it, and really getting rid of things that were failing for me. I think my teaching of many grade levels and ability. I've taught anywhere from 7th grade to 12th grade English. I taught our TEP program, which was our transitional education program, which was for students who really didn't make it in a regular classroom. I taught our block reading class, which was actually scheduling students to take a reading and English 10 class together, students who were below a reading level, and getting them to reading at their grade level. And I've taught many, many inclusion classes and honors English classes. But what I think my best qualification for an expert is my simple passion for the subject I teach. How did I make the paradigm shift from a teacher-generated classroom to a student-generated classroom? Well, I followed 3 simple steps. Before reading, we front load and set a purpose. During reading, we try to synthesize along the way and set our purpose, and after reading, explain and assess. Before reading, we set the purpose and I make sure my students are front-loaded. For instance, if we're reading The Kite Runner, I make sure they have ample background knowledge on Farsi culture and the history of Afghanistan. When we read To Kill a Mockingbird, I make sure we cover the Great Depression, we examine the Scottsboro trial and the injustice that took place, and we examine the Alabama state codes at the time of the novel. We look at the author's biography, and we ask the essential questions. The unit I'm doing right now is The Tragedy of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. So I have the students complete this web quest in groups and of course using the internet. You can see the questions asked are about William Shakespeare, the Globe Theater, ancient Rome, and the historical facts that took place during the play. And of course, we address the essential question, which is, who is the tragic hero in the tragedy of Julius Caesar? Julius Caesar or Marcus Brutus? During reading, we synthesize along the way and set our purpose. I read the entire novel to pretty much all my students, no matter what we're reading. We work together as a whole group to digest the text and then try to stop and answer higher level questions and not simply regurgitate the answers that I want from them from a study guide. And we continue to address the essential question, whatever it may be, throughout the text. My favorite of all the novels that I read has to be To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'll have to admit, I butcher a southern accent, but I love doing it. Macomb was a tired old town, but it was a tired old town when I first knew it. In rainy weather, the streets turned to red slop. Grass grew on the sidewalks. The courthouse sagged in the square. Somehow it was hotter then. A black dog suffered on a summer day. Bony mules hitched to Hoover carts flicked flies in the sweltering shade of live oaks on the square. Sorry about that, I just had to do it. After reading, I'll make sure the students have a full explanation and understand completely the text. And of course, I will assess their learning. And I do not shy away from traditional assessments. However, the assessment that I prefer, and hands down my students prefer, are collaborative projects. This is a project I assigned just today. It's on the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Students have the opportunity to choose any one of the assignments or assessment that scratch their creative itch, and they can choose to work as individuals or collaboratively. For the majority, most of them prefer to work in groups. Dewey's emphasis upon cooperative classrooms and projects draws first upon his belief that the will to cooperate, like our potential to think intelligently, is ingrained in human nature. Humans have, according to Dewey, an inborn need for companionship and mutual aid. Children especially have a natural impetus to contribute in their own unique way to conjoint projects. And I certainly see this to be true because, hands down, the majority of them choose collaborative projects. I did want to show a video of a student who chose to work individually. Now, this is one of my special ed students, and she struggled with learning her 10 lines, but I'm telling you, towards the end, she did a really, really great job, and I just wanted to share this. Hopefully you can hear it. Okay, I hope you could hear that. But what I thought was this was a great example of a student who chose to work independently and struggled and really did a great job in the end. Here's a video of students I caught just today. Now these are a little bit of my little rascals, my little naughties, and they are practicing their lines. They don't know I'm recording them, but I'm hoping you can hear them too. So they chose to work independently, and again, I just thought that was a good example of their collaboration and their choice to be collaborative. How do I know it works? Well, test scores. As I said earlier, I don't shy away from tests, and I did give two of my regular English 10 classes just last week. One of them is an inclusion class, a really challenging multiple choice 50 questions on the tragedy of Julius Caesar. I traditionally give it to honor students, and I was pleased to discover that only 6 out of the 49 did not pass, and the rest of them did very well. I also find from student feedback, when I give them time to work in class on their collaborative projects, they are all participating and doing a really great job. And also from student feedback. One of my favorite stories of all time in all my years of teaching occurred last year. First semester, I had finished reading the entire novel of To Kill a Mockingbird to the class, and one student, his name was Big Mac, who had shared with me at the beginning of the year, he hated to read. Anyway, at the conclusion of the book, he said in the most sincere and earnest voice, I didn't want that to end." That warmed the cockles of my literary-based heart. Adaptation for other grades and subjects? Well, this is a really big question and kind of a struggle for me to answer because I honestly think elementary school teachers are already doing project-based learning, and even starting 8 years ago put me behind in the paradigm shift at the high school level. I just think I'm a little late in the game, and most teachers are probably ahead of me leaps and bounds when it comes to collab. Ways to improve? Well, somehow I need to have my school include service learning in our lessons for the English curriculum. After sharing with my colleagues in the class, I realized the need for a project that might start freshman year and maybe work cumulatively until the senior year for students. This project could tie into themes in one of our units or have some kind of community service involved. But currently we have no projects or collaborative learning in place to promote social justice, whether locally or globally. Well, to end, I'd like to share with you a Caesar rap. Hopefully you can hear this one and you enjoy it.
We will be satisfied. Let us be satisfied. And follow me and let the audience rest. And Qualifications shall be record of Caesar's death.
Yeah, sorry. That ain't gonna be enough. We have some unfinished business here, Brutus.
My poor Antony, be patient till the last, for the Caesar slain MC is about to leave your rear outclassed. Roman customers and lovers, do not listen to this fool. He is nothing but a sheep trapped beneath the lion's rule. Antony, you little was such a people pleaser. There's no way your arid thread you had a bromance with dear Caesar. These people will not listen, no matter what you say. Caesar died while you cried, and you promptly ran away. You will come walking right out here, trying to whine and swine and spit. Some lies about betrayal, what a little hypocrite. I would rather live freely than die a Caesar's slave. A country ruled by one, that's not a fate I crave. You're not just a pleaser, you're also a deceiver. You shook all our hands dirty by the blood of Caesar.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I've only come to bury he who Brutus greatly fears. Brutus said he was ambitious, but is this really true? He did so many things, all just for you. Brutus used a deadly dagger, while I just shook some hands. He stabbed his friend right in the back, and yet he's a noble man. You think what you did was right? You killed a friend, man. No way. Does this sound familiar? Et tu, Brute?